I'm super excited. Until yesterday, I had never actually seen a Great Lake, and I flew into Chicago, and so that's Lake Michigan, right? Chicago's Michigan. You guys have Erie, right? Okay, so I flew over. Water, different places, water looks different, and I'm used to Florida water because I'm from South Florida, and the water is almost like, sometimes it's like limey green or turquoise, but this water was this beautiful, like blue-green, kind of teal color. Just blew my mind. It was beautiful. So I love it up here. I love everybody I've met here so far. You guys are really nice and really talented. I hope to get the chance to interact with some of the students while I'm here, because that's one of my favorite things to do. Anyway, I'm actually not going to read from the book, because while I'm here and while I have you, there's an essay that I want to read that Kenyon Review just about got, and they were an hour and a half late because it got accepted by another publication. Just a short time, I had to say no, and the story behind this is I've always wanted to be in the Kenyon Review, because in 1990 my mother was getting an MFA, and she got an MFA from Florida International University, where I was. And so I'm the first legacy from the MFA program at that school. It's kind of cool, right? But by this point, I just dropped out of college, and I was waiting tables, painting. I didn't know what I was doing. And so I'd go over to her house, where she was reading for the literary magazine there, which is called Gulfstream Magazine. It's still doing very well, little mag. And she had these big piles, just a reader. She wasn't an editor at the time. She had these big piles, and I would just sit there and read submissions, right? Not caring. And I think, I'm not going to be a writer. I don't care about any of this stuff. But I would read, and I secretly cared very much about this stuff. Like, I really liked reading. I really liked trying to figure out what was working and what wasn't working in a piece. And that was on one side of her desk. The other side of her desk had this giant pile of literary magazines from all sorts of different places. And I said, she's like, you should become a writer. I was like, there's no money. What am I going to do here? I don't want to be a writer. What do I have to say? And then she says, well, I think you're going to become a writer. I said, well, who wants to do what their mom wants them to do, right? So I'm definitely not going to become a writer. And then she said, when you do become a writer, when you get published in the Kenyon Review, you'll know you've made it. So I've never forgotten. So I've always kind of kept my eye on you guys and what's happening here. And it's just one of my favorite publications. So I'm extra happy to be here today. And I'm going to read the essay that I don't want to say it ended up in a great place, but I'm sorry that you guys didn't get it, but I'm going to read it here today. So one of the things I've been doing lately is, not lately, always, is thinking about time, and time in relation to memoir, and the fluidity of it, and living in the past versus living in the future versus living in the present, and balancing it, and then also balancing it as a writer. And one of the things that I told Molly today in the podcast, can you guys hear me okay? I feel like I'm not projecting. Okay. One of the things that I told Molly in the podcast was that early on when I was reading in high school, I got a little bit obsessed with Kurt Vonnegut, and he had that other planet, Tralfamadore. Do you guys know Tralfamadore? And the Tralfamadorian time was nonlinear. And I must have just read that at the right time, because that has always stuck with me. And I always think of things in terms like that, like what is happening in this room right now? Well, also, what is happening to my thought right now while I'm here, while also thinking about something that has already happened, while also thinking about what I'll be thinking about later about this room right now. Do you know what I'm saying? So it just is like this circular thing, and that's a theme of mine that I can't seem to get away from. And so and I guess I'm just going to accept that this is how I write and this is what I'm doing. So I wrote an essay about a time that I almost died, and the only other place that I read it was at a place where a woman ended up fainting, and they needed to call the ambulance. So I'm going to say there's a trigger warning on it, but if you can't, if it's a trigger for you, I'll explain it in a second. If it's a trigger for you, try to stay, because things turn out all right. I'm here, I didn't die. And I don't know, just give it a shot. Madeline Blaze, who was a mentor of mine, was at the thing, and when this poor woman fainted, she responded to this essay in a not positive way, and she fainted during it, and she called her husband and said, look, this was somebody they knew. So-and-so fainted, and all thing he could say was, these are writers, oh, gosh, if I could get someone to do that at a reading of mine. Wow! So I'm going to read a shortened version of it, but please know that it sounds kind of dark, but it's not all that dark, and there is hope to it, and I am here. So it's called Arrhythmia, and I'll take a little bit out of it. I'm abbreviating for time. And here we go. Arrhythmia. To heroes and artists and teenagers, the heart represents love. People draw hearts on foggy glass or on dirty car windows. We make heart shapes out of our hands when we pose for selfies. We doodle hearts around the names of our beloved. We wear heart-studded clothing on Valentine's Day. We eat heart-shaped chocolates out of heart-shaped boxes. We say, I heart you, when we're too cowardly to admit we really mean love. In pop music, which so often tries to encapsulate the pain of love, you can have a hungry heart, a cheating heart, a lonely heart. You can have a broken heart, or you can be the breaker of hearts. You can have a heart of glass or a heart of gold. You can stay at a heartbreak hotel. If so inclined, you can join a Lonely Hearts Club band. Or if you need someone tonight, and you need them more than ever, you can have a, anyone know? Total eclipse of the heart? All right, it's so romantic. As a people, we're fixated on the many metaphors the heart provides. Despite this, we are rarely called on to think about our physical hearts, though we can feel them beating in our bodies, pumping life-giving blood to keep us alive. It's a constant we take for granted, like the ticking of a clock that we can tune into or ignore at will without giving it a second thought. The heart of a person who lives to be 80 will beat around 3,363,840,000 times. 2 minutes without a heartbeat and you are, as they say medically, a goner. What is it like to have your heart give up on you? I'll tell you. First off, it'll wake you from sleep in the middle of the night, and this is bad. Being awakened from a deep sleep has never hearkened good news. No one has ever woken you to announce that you have just won a sum of money, or that your crush is in love with you, or that the test results were negative, or that your rent has gone down by $300 a month. In your life, you have been awakened by loud parties, crying babies, potty training puppies, teenagers who have made dumb midnight mistakes, kidney stones, barking dogs, a peeping Tom, pinging your window with small pebbles, your stepfather, a fellow card-carrying OCD club member, pointlessly and doggedly cleaning the screens with the hose outside your bedroom window, phone calls announcing the death of loved ones, diarrhea during a bout of food poisoning, your husband snoring, your neighbors fighting, and once, an explosion from a car that was on fire in the street in front of your house. But you've never been awakened by your heart doing the Lindy Hop inside the cage of your chest. When it first does this, you instantly wake, sit up in immediate terror to a tiny swirling couple in spectator brogues kicking the inside walls of your heart to a frantic big band beat that you know is not normal. This is an immediate betrayal of every constant you have known to be true. You get out of bed and check your pulse. It is so fast you can't count it. Because you're in a panic, you do not think to call an ambulance. Instead, you drive yourself to the closest ER. You have a history of abandoning civic responsibility by driving to the ER on your own, despite physical indications that you should not be behind the wheel. You once got a kidney stone and drove yourself to the hospital in the middle of the night, so bleary with pain you nearly ran off the road. One time you sliced your finger with the kind of sharp, scraping razor that takes off window tinting, and the blood soaked through the towel, through your pants, and into the dip of the car seat while you drove. You've driven during headaches so bad you've lost the vision in one eye. But this is the first time you think you might actually die while driving. Despite some years of cardiac arrhythmia, doctors have labeled as benign, and despite the familiarity of the discord of your heart, this feeling is new. Previous sensations you have had in your chest: heartburn, which you have considered to be a heart attack; pain in the chest while bending down, which occurs only while dehydrated; a single palpitation, which feels like a flutter, then an absence of beat, then a flood of relief when the heart beats normally again; a PVC, which is premature ventricular contraction; a series of PVCs in a row, which feel so bad you wish you could go unconscious, but are still considered benign; occasional short stabs of pain when the heart beats, likely while there is a skipped beat and something going on with gas in your esophagus at the same time; and once during your college graduation at age 30, when you were so stricken with stage fright due to your impending speech that your heart biochemistry had bathed in straight adrenaline for close to 48 hours. Your heart beats once while on stage, then seems to stop for 7 or 8 seconds while your head and neck fill with blood before it starts to beat again. Due to your very real anxiety, your body chemistry has become accustomed to the fight or flight state as a matter of course. And your heart often goes AWOL with that squirting of all that adrenaline you can't help producing. Doctors have been surprised that when hooking you up to an EKG, you can predict when a PVC is about to happen or when a run of bigeminy is about to occur. They say most people can't feel this, which baffles you. You swear at times you can feel your pleura slide between your lungs and your diaphragm, or you can feel your pulse in your teeth, or your eyeballs in your skull. You can scratch an itch on your nose that feel the web of nerve endings in the area for a good 3 minutes. You can tell at exactly which point through which the large intestine, your stool, is moving. You can close your eye and see things that look like what you used to see under the microscope in microbiology. Round, gray chains, multicellular filaments, perhaps, or a swirling spirochete moving past your field of vision like ducks swimming past you in a pond. When you pull up in the ER parking lot, your heart begins to beat normally. It reminds you of Michigan J. Frog, the shy ragtime singing cartoon who will only perform when he is not in front of an audience. You second guess yourself, thinking that if you go in there and ask for an EKG and have a normal heart rhythm, you will waste a $300 copay and a lot of people's time. But you remember how malevolent that beat felt in your chest. You go inside. In hindsight, this will be a decision that saves your life. In triage, you apologize. You say you felt it, that it was definitely wrong and it scared you. No, you never felt it before. No, you do not have a pacemaker. No, you have not taken anything. No, you are not on anything. They stick electrodes all over your body, hook you up for a quick EKG, and announce that your cardiac rhythm is normal. You ask the triage nurse if he will keep you hooked up for a few minutes, and he agrees. He takes you to a room, pats your leg, and leaves. 3 minutes later, you feel a warning flutter, a pressure in your neck, and you shout out to the empty room, "Here it comes." An alarm goes off on the monitor, and staff immediately rush into the room. It is a small room, suddenly packed with people in uniforms, calling out orders, reading monitors, peeling back the plastic packaging of needles and IV fluids. They throw the papers and needle guards right on top of you. They bump into each other. Someone says VTAC or VFib. Another person asks for a crash cart. Outside the room, you hear someone say, "Hurry, I got a lady in here trying to die." The heart rhythm feels terrible, and you believe you are going to die, but you don't connect yourself with the lady in the room trying to die. You don't think that lady is you, but your worry for her is eclipsed by your need to pass out. Before you almost died, you occasionally wrestled with suicidal feelings, not so much that you've wanted to kill yourself. You've never come up with a date or a plan. You've never had to fight the urge in the moment. You simply felt like you might be better off dead. You would once in a while think, "I wish this could just be over." You don't admit this lightly. There's so much shame that comes with it. It is very serious, and you have long worried that having the thought alone would cause you to die, like a punishment for being ungrateful. Since almost dying, you no longer have these thoughts. You've stood at the edge of the abyss and peeked across the new frontier and realized you are not ready to die. And wishing this life would go away, however desperate the origin of the feeling, would be a waste of something precious you have been given, like walking out of the movie before it is over and never knowing how it ends. Another thing that will happen is this. You will never again say things like, "I'm so hungry I could die," or "That joke slayed me," or "You're killing me, Smalls." Never ever do you say that now. An audience might consider it exciting to hear the factual details of the way you almost died. There, but for the grace of God and all that. We're all secret rubberneckers. If you were a different kind of person, you'd be able to take an emotional step back from the experience and share them, but you don't have that kind of courage it takes to revisit the specifics. Your courage has already been spent on other things. In fact, you will have flashbacks of the event for 2 years after dredging this up again. But there's a reason for your revisitation. You're thinking about what happens in the moments before death, not the physical process. Any hospice website will tell you the physical process. You're talking about the mind, the consciousness, the flowchart of how we say goodbye to our bodies, what it feels like right before we lose consciousness that final time. The fact that you know what it will be like to die alone in a cluttered room with a bunch of strangers who are on the clock. You don't remember if they had to use a defibrillator that night because you were not awake for some of the events and are not in a psychological position to request a copy of your medical records. You know how your mind works, and it wouldn't be good to know this. And besides, since almost dying, you no longer read medical thrillers. I'm going to skip a little bit. It says, if they couldn't find a pulse, they would have used the paddles to shock your heart. But you think that would be a big enough deal to remember, or at least to tell you about later. Like, "Lady, you won't believe what we had to do to get you back. It was so gnarly. Paddles. Okay, clear. Shunk." You do not want to know. You make your husband promise to never tell you, no matter when in the future you might ask. You wake up in the ICU. Your husband is at your side, oozing worry, but pretending to be calm by smiling and stroking your arm. You have no idea how he got here. Last time you checked, he was 950 miles away. You didn't have time to call him when you drove to the ER. They must have used your cell phone to contact him. and you thought you were silly when you put him in your contact list as ICE in case of emergency. There will be 2 surgeries, 2 days apart, he says, but don't worry. And strangely, you don't, though you were born worrying, and worry has occupied most of your life. You have entered into some sort of dissociative state. The first surgery will be an exploration to look for abnormalities in your vessels, blockages, and other frightening things you don't like to think about even now. They want to make sure the problem is electrical. The second surgery will be to locate and destroy the offending short circuit in your heart's electrical system. The first surgery is not a big deal. You will not remember being wheeled to this one, though you will remember waking from it, as steroids are involved, and steroids give you steroid psychosis. You wake at some point, perhaps while being wheeled back into the ICU, and ask, when is the surgery? A nurse tells you it has already happened. You ask when, and she says, it was about an hour ago. Then you ask what time it is. She tells you it is noon. When you see your husband, you briefly think he is the doctor who has disguised himself as your husband, including wearing a very realistic wig, because your doctor is bald as a billiard and your husband has a good head of hair. You ask him when the surgery will be, and he tells you it has already happened. Then you ask what time it was over, and he tells you it was about an hour and 10 minutes ago. Then you ask what time it is. You ask these 3 questions of everyone you see for the next 5 hours, averaging 1 cycle per 10 minutes. You know you were doing this, but you cannot stop. You register nothing except confusion. You also remember nothing of the following. Most medical staff members, your rooms, with the exception of being wheeled into the second surgery, transitions to or from any place. Most visitors, anything conversational, any instructions given by medical personnel, decisions you made or that were made on your behalf, how you relieved yourself, eating anything at all, texting multiple goodbye messages to friends and family, telling them how much they meant to you and to go on and do good things with their lives. Months later, you will also find a selfie on your phone that you took with your husband when he was lying down with you in the hospital bed. You are looking right into the camera, yet do not remember taking it. The first surgery reveals that you have arteries as clean and as supple as a child's. This is good news and will one day help soothe the small cracker in your hypochondriasis. The second surgery is scheduled for the following day, and since you are stable, they decide to take you out of the ICU for the night and place you in a regular room. Your nurse is a man with an epic beard. It is night. Your husband is at your side, and a family friend sits in a chair in the corner of the tiny room. You do not register the topic of conversation, and you do not really understand how it has suddenly become night, or how you have gotten this new room, or why. You feel separated from everything, like you are watching a television show from behind a plexiglass partition. The dancers take off on the side of your chest wall. Here it comes, you say, and you feel yourself fading out, black ink spreading from the side of your field of vision to wash your eyes dark. Everything disappears for a moment. Then you feel a pop, and you are on top of your room, looking down at the scene. You see your friend in the corner, the part in her hair showing scalp, and she is praying. You can hear the prayers, though her mouth is not moving. You see your husband stand up and run out of the room. His wish is to have someone do something now. The nurse runs in and begins to fiddle with drugs going through your machine. You can hear him think, not tonight you don't, not on my watch. Then you look down at the body in the bed. It is empty, yet warm, and you see it as a piece of new information. The eyes are closed, head is tipped toward the left, facing the IV machine. At first, the face looks unfamiliar. Then you recognize it as yours. You feel alive, an electric energy that consumes you. Then a soundless pop sucks you away, and you are back in. You open your eyes and remember what everyone had been thinking in that moment when you tried to die again but failed. You will not think anything of it right then, but later, you will not be able to stop thinking of it, to the point of distraction, to the point where you will sheepishly visit a near-death experience support group, somewhat doubtful that it happened at all. You are wheeled into the OR, which looks nothing like the dark and dramatic operating rooms on television. This one is bright and shiny and looks like a giant tiled closet with many cords and boxes hanging from the walls and ceiling. Tubes covered in plastic wrap, wheeled metal trays, computers, one of which may be the dreaded crash cart. Sounds bounce off the hard surfaces like rubber balls. Faces begin to blur, and you are not even on the good drugs yet. You are only on Ativan and a little bit of Versed. You like the Versed, and you say so. You could get used to this Versed, you declare, and everyone laughs, though everyone who gets Versed says the same thing while on the Versed, and every staff member who hears this 20 times per day laughs simply out of the politeness for the patient. You see, none of this is actually funny. Everyone is talking to you, to each other, and it seems as if they are rushing, like there is a big hurry with this case, like if they don't get it done in time, the queue will be backed up, and an angry scheduling coordinator will yell at them. Or maybe they have a conference to get to, or a staff meeting, or perhaps you are about to die. Is that the crash cart in the corner? Do they call it a crash cart in real life, or just on TV? Later, when this is over, you will never, ever, ever watch another medical drama, but you do not know this now. They slide you onto the table, which is a special cardiac table of some sort, with molded plastic arm-sized offshoots, and you fit in it as if you were a puzzle piece. And when, through your Versed-fueled meanderings, you think about the bean-counting hospital administrator responsible for purchasing this table, the kind of person trained to think only of the bottom line, one who scrolls through catalog pages of cardiac tables until they came to this one, touted as rugged, reliable, trusted, washable, and who purchased 10 or 20 more of these things to fit all the poor cardiac fuckers who are unlikely enough to face the ceiling of an operating room. How much do these tables cost anyway? You ask this out loud, and a nurse startles you by quickly strapping your arms in the offshoots. And thanks to the Versed, you declare loudly, "Hey, nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition." You don't like this at all. It is all moving too quickly, you think. You think about stupid things, the beeping, which you hate, the computers, your strapped down arms. You do not think about your husband, who kissed you outside of the hallway before they peeled him away from your gurney. Your scattered children, one of them sitting in a high school biology class, one at home in Florida walking her dog along a sun-stippled street, one studying for finals in a dorm room up north, one on a Coast Guard cutter off the coast of Oregon, and one holding his new baby in Charlotte. The most wonderful parts of your life you don't think of. The Versed won't let you get sentimental. What you think of is this: if I die, I won't have done what I am here to do. You realize you aren't afraid of dying, but surprised it's going to be this way. In your 40s, young enough for it to be surprising and tragic. One of those people whose photos your high school class will spread around on social media. Remember her? No, me neither. The anesthesiologist appears at your right shoulder like a spirit, scaring you silly. And he says something like, "Okay, honey, time for a nap," which is what they all say. "I'm going to try to fight it," you tell him. "Be my guest," he says. "Just kidding, bring it on," you say, because there is no way, no how that you want to be awake for what is going to happen. This slow sneak into your body by way of the very important femoral artery of a tiny machine which will annihilate by fire an offensive set of nerves in your heart, the part of your heart that is marching out of step with the rest of your body. The idea of a little snake working its way up through a critical arterial pathway gives you chills, because all you can imagine is the surgeon sneezing while navigating this little joystick to where it pierces your body, making it to your lungs a few days after you go home when you think the worst is over, and kills you in your sleep, which is worse than dying on the table because you will have thought you were out of the woods. You hate the thought of strangers messing around in the playground of your heart. Out of the corner of your eye, you see the anesthesiologist's thumb push a syringe into your IV, and you have time to croak, "Remember that scene from Jacob's Ladder where the gurney wheels roll over the bloody body parts?" Before your eyes close and there is nothing. You could be dead for all you know, but you don't know because you think nothing. You are nothing. This might deliver you a bit of the silence you have so often craved in life, but you will only be able to understand it by looking back on it, so it isn't a real silence to be enjoyed. You wake up 15 seconds later to the sound of beeping, but not the same kind of beeping you usually hear in recovery. You look up. You see operating lights above your head and several screens above your torso, and a nurse at your left arm gripping your hand saying, "Look at me, sweetie, don't look over there." What the shit? You are still in the operating room. You are awake on the table. Your arms are tied down. The doctor is at your right hip, looking intently at a monitor while moving a little joystick. Something must be wrong. "Okay, almost ready," he says, not looking at you. "Ready for what?" you ask. "Are we still in surgery?" "Yep, you're doing great." "How long?" "About 3 hours. We're almost done. I couldn't get your arrhythmia to come out and play while you were under, so we had to wake you up." "You're kidding," you say. You look at the nurse, who is gripping your left hand with both of hers. "Don't move," she says. "Look at me." I do. She has brown eyes. She's young. "You woke me during surgery? There's something in my heart right now?" "Yep," the surgeon says. "You're doing great." "Don't move," the nurse says again. "I don't like this one bit," you say. You're groggy from the anesthesia, and you are not sure if any of this is real. "You're doing so great," the doctor says. "We're ready for the epi, please. Time to come out and play." Your face gets hot, and you feel a sudden terror, the kind you might feel as if you're being chased by a horde of zombies. And your fear is so chemical, so deep, that you understand the fear of being chased as much as you fear what is chasing you, which in this case you think is death. It's a DEFCON 1 level terror. Your heart begins to beat so fast in your chest that you can't tell when one beat stops and another begins. They have intentionally given you a medication to make you feel this way. "I hate this, I hate this, I hate this, I hate this, I hate this," you say. "You're doing great," the nurse says. "There it is," the doctor says. "There what is?" You crane your head over to the monitor, which is positioned above your abdomen and facing you slightly. "Don't move," 2 nurses and the doctor say. You freeze, thinking of your femoral artery and the hardware in your heart. "Got it," the doctor says. "Okay, honey, you're going to feel a little burning." "I hate this," you say again. The nurse tells you to look at her, so you do. Her eyes are not only brown, but they are big and beautiful, like a cow's eyes. You dissected a cow eye once in anatomy, and you can't see a limpid brown eye without thinking of the dissection. Tell me a story, the nurse says. I have one for you. Wait, hold on, I say. You say, ow, 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 ow. A searing goes through your chest that is so strong it feels like your sternum is breaking. They're burning your heart muscle while it beats. I hate this. You're doing great, 3 people say at once. No, I'm not. You guys lied to me. You didn't tell me I'd be awake. Your heart rate begins to slow, the pain subsides, and you smell smoke, like smoky meat. Great job, the doctor says absent-mindedly. He's looking intently at the screen. Are we done? You ask. Not yet. A couple more times. Ready? And before you can protest, your heart takes off at a sprint, and just when the terror level is so high, you wish you would go unconscious. They burn your heart again. Ow, 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 ow! You've been reduced to the most minimal of communication. You begin to cry. Hey, the nurse says, tell me that story. So you tell her through your clenched teeth that you can see colors, that you can see them right now, all over the room. It's like a migraine of colors making the room shimmer. You tell her all about synesthesia. You tell her about Dr. Oliver Sacks, one of your favorite essayists. When you smell your heart muscle burning, you tell her you will one day write an essay about what your heart smells like when it burns. When the pain subsides, you say, all done? Just a few more, they say. They do it 7 more times, maybe 10. What do you know? Because in hindsight, you have blocked some of this out, though not in the way you should have been allowed, with the use of anesthesia. What is there to say after a major unexpected surgery? After 5 days in the ICU, of which you have little to no memory, you go home, though you were afraid to leave the hospital. Once the anesthesia is out of your system and you have returned from your fugue state, you feel grateful for a few days. Colors are extra bright. The water that comes out of the tap shimmers with white silver you never before noticed. The leaves on the trees are extra green. The blooming flowers are so bright they sparkle. You can hear your dog's thoughts. You can see details in things you never noticed. You can see yourself in the reflection of a droplet of dew. The smell of tree bark of the various trees you know smells sweet and strangely distinct from one another. You see the trees bending toward each other at the park as if they are in relationship, and you realize for the first time that they are. It moves you to tears. The rage starts about 6 weeks in. You didn't ask for this. You didn't want to pop out of your body and come back with a fundamentally different belief about God or religion. You didn't want to be awake for heart surgery. You didn't want to be away from your husband when your body crumped and tried to die. You are afraid to be alone because you don't want the arrhythmia to come back when no one is with you. The chest pain you feel as your heart heals causes panic attacks. You call your doctor's nurse's line every other day, and she talks you through your symptoms, assures you that you will not die. Yet you order a medical alert bracelet that has your husband's name and number on it, and for a year will not step outside your home without wearing it. It takes that long for you to trust that you will not die every single day, out of the blue, because you have enough of an inkling of what that would be like, alone in an ER, surrounded by strangers, out of control of your body. Control has become more of a theme in your life than it ever has. You rage at anything you cannot control. You want to get out of your car and punch in the face bonehead drivers who cut you off. You want to shove people who walk too slowly in front of you at the store. You want to hunt down and make miserable the people who call your cell phone by mistake and then hang up instead of saying they were sorry. When people talk too slowly, you want to tell them to hurry up because you don't have all day. You could be about to die, and you at least want to get home for it. You stop following all news and politics because the colossal waste of time it represents makes you rage. You even rage at your own ingratitude. Don't people know how good they have it, you wonder? Don't you? You don't want to leave any unfinished business, so you make a spreadsheet with all your passwords on it. You throw away your childhood journals. You get rid of your comfy, hole-filled period panties. You throw away anything in your house you don't truly need. Someday, someone will have to go through your things and decide what to keep and what to get rid of, and you don't want anyone making any judgments about you. And every night you wake up in the middle of the night just to make sure you can wake up in the middle of the night. It's a new state of being, one you don't question, because your heart has been broken and patched back together. Your heart has worked too hard for too long. Your heart has gone to war and needs to rest, but it can't take a day off, because if it stops working, you will die. Forget the heart-shaped chocolates and the heart-shaped box and the heart as a metaphor for love. You almost wasted your life. Knowing this hurts, but not as much as your heart burning. This is a hard essay to read, right? It's a hard essay to admit, you know. And then I read it, like I said, only one other time, and everybody laughed. There were probably like 300 people in the audience, and everybody cracked up through the whole thing. Like, oh, okay, so and maybe this is funny, because I find a lot of it funny now, but then I wonder if either you guys don't find it funny, which is totally fine, or it's a smaller room, and that other room was dark, and there were a lot of people, and it was pitch black, so you can laugh anonymously at little parts, you know, and like, you can't hear because I'm sitting right here. So I don't know what that is, you know, but it's a weird essay. And so, real quick, my editor, I'm under contract for a couple more books with my editor, and she's like, what do you have? What do you have? And I sent her this new series of essays, and she's like, I don't like it. I don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole, you know? I said, well, why not? I mean, I think it's better work than my other work. I'm really excited about all this that I'm doing because it all kind of has a theme and flows together. And I'm happy with it. And she's like, it's just not funny. I was like, well, death isn't really, I mean, it's death. You know, it's illness, it's death, it's mortality and stuff, and it doesn't, she's like, but I like the funny, Dawn. You know? So, I don't know. I feel like editors, everything's subjective. All the art we do is subjective. All the writing we do is subjective. You know, and I guess it's our job as writers to find readers who get us. You know, so at these things I always want to. I don't want to talk about myself. I always want to find out what you guys are like, what you guys do and what you write. So can you tell me who's nonfiction here? 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna single you guys out later. No, and who's poetry? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and fiction? Why are you guys hesitant? It's okay? Oh, there's only 2, yeah, no, it's okay, yeah. Okay, so 2 fiction writers, okay. So you guys want to write professionally? Yeah, 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 you can do it. I mean, you can do it. Yeah, who's published yet? Yeah, good, yeah, oh my gosh, it's okay. You can raise your hand, it's okay, I won't call on you, I'm just curious. Do you guys, I'm sure that you talk a lot about publishing here because this fertile ground that you walk every day. Are you encouraged to publish as undergrads? We talk about it, you guys do it? Who feels like they're not ready to do it? I think you should just do it anyway. If you're not ready, who hasn't submitted anything yet? If you are and you don't want to raise your hand and you know who you are, go ahead and start submitting. I mean, find journals that you like and do it. Are you guys scared of rejection? Because it's a hard one, yeah. Just do it, and the first one hurts, and the second one hurts just a tad less, and then the third one hurts just a molecule less, and then eventually after your 100th or your 200th or your 300th one, you'll be able to get on for maybe 3 or 4 hours without remembering that you got rejected that morning, you know, and it just gets easier, and you should just keep doing it and keep doing it. And if you know your work is good, sometimes it's a matter of finding the right home for it, so I was afraid to submit to the Kenyon Review. I had a book out and I was still afraid to send to you guys because I have such respect and no one wants a no from somebody you really admire. And so I sent it to this essay I sent to probably 40 other people, 40 other places. And on the same day I got picked up by 2 people, and that's just the way it works. But I have another one out in McSweeney's, the latest issue, and I think you're in it, right? Yeah, we're in the same issue. And I think I sent that out to probably 60 places, and it was hard nose from 58 of them. 2 were like, meh, but it doesn't matter. The rejections don't matter. It's that you get the match. You get that good match. It's like finding somebody nice to date, right? You get that good match and you click. It doesn't matter what anyone thinks of them or what you think of anyone else. It's just you get a hit. So I say to you, if you're nervous about publishing or if you're unsure, you know your work is good, your peers have said it's good, you're studying at a great institution, you're smart, you have the drive, you have that creative spark, just start sending stuff out. And for every rejection you get, if you get personalized rejections, that's wonderful. Just take that and edit, analyze where you can get better, make it better, and then send it out to 4 more places. So that's how I got, I think, 55 publications in 3 years. Every time it came back, I sent it to 4 more places. I didn't just blindly send it. I fixed it. I tweaked, then sent it to 4 more places. So it became like a virus out there. Like I just replicated and I just resent it. You said no, I will resend it somewhere else, and eventually you'll find a home for your stuff. So, I don't know, does anybody have any questions? I'm happy to talk about anything, almost anything.
How much time elapsed between that moment happening and your writing about it?
Oh, that's good. So you notice it's in that dreaded second person, right? Nobody likes second person. Second person was super trendy in the 90s, and then everyone hated it for a long time, right? And then, but I found out probably a couple years. So this happened in December 2015, and it got accepted in December 2017. So probably a year and 4 months. And it's one of those ones that sometimes they write really quickly. We're talking about this today. Sometimes like a couple days you got one. Sometimes it takes 10 years or longer to write a really good, for me anyway. And I couldn't get the emotional distance. I was really kind of messed up in the head for a while. And I thought, I even stopped writing. I was very purposeless for a little while. Like, what does all this mean? You know, like that thing happened. I saw my body, you know, and if it's chemicals, it's chemicals. If it's not chemicals, I don't care. I experienced that thing, and it kind of messed my head up. So it was the first thing I wrote after the experience. So I took a full year and a half something off and didn't write. And I thought, oh, I'm never going to be able to do it again because I don't know, I felt blocked, and I did it, and it wrote really quickly. And I only edited for like a couple months or something, so it was pretty quick. But I still can't, I could not have done it in first person. I slipped into first person once when I was reading, and I was like, oh, that's so funny because it's not even written in first person. There was no I on the page, but it's still I, but there's that distance that second person gives you to have it not be I, it's you, right? So yeah. Well, yeah.
Considering that it was like a personal essay and the time frame wasn't really linear, do you find yourself ever like inserting fiction or embroidery into like your personal essays?
So, yes and no. We were talking about this, funny, we're talking about this today too. You have to listen to the podcast. So, yes and no. So obviously, I don't know why. It almost sounds like impossible to believe that I could remember so clearly that one event, and so much of it I blocked out. But it is absolutely 100% true that I remember being in that one OR because I really thought I was going to die. And I remember there was this hyper focus that I had, all these weird details, the table and the lights and the plastic on all that they cover the cords so the bacteria doesn't get in curls of cords and the little grooves and stuff. And I remember so much of it. And I had to ask myself that question when I was writing this particular essay, like how much am I embellishing because I was like emotional about it, and I really think that that I try not to do that with essays. I use fiction for that, but I always have to second guess myself. Like we talked, I say like, was this really true, or is something coming from some other place that I'd like it to be true, or that it's better this way even though it's not true. As a memoirist, you kind of have to really balance that and check yourself, you know. So that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. What else? Yeah.
With a piece this personal, did the rejections for it feel different?
Yeah, that's a really good question. No, because rejection gets easier. The more confident you get, the rejection gets easier. And I also feel like I was writing at a point where, so I started writing late. So, you know, I'm a little older. I won a New Book Award when I was 50 years old. And I did something else for a long time. And then my mom was right. Like I really always did want to be a writer. Secretly wanted to do that. And yeah, the Kenyon Review started it all. But then I went to grad school in my 40s, and this happened in my 40s. And refresh me, because I'm going around circularly. Tell me, because I got to come back to your point.
Was the rejection hard?
Okay, so in the beginning, the rejection's abysmally painful, and like I really couldn't like go 10 minutes without thinking of the rejection. I also have a little OCD, but I couldn't go, like it hurt. Like it was like somebody breaking up with you when you get early rejections, and it's gonna hurt, and that's okay. Like I think I open my email in the morning and there'd be 4 rejections. Like, oh my gosh, I'm horrible. This will never happen. I'll go make breakfast, and then I'm cooking eggs, and I'll think about the rejection again, and then I'll get dressed. There'll be the rejection, and then eventually, like you stop. And you get more confident, and you know that your work is good. And then also you get that external validation because people will publish you. And then once you start getting more publications, it becomes easier. And in terms of this, I knew that I was at a place, like I knew this was pretty good. I knew this was, not that this good, but it was truthful and it was meaningful to me in a way that I felt like could do something for an audience and give readers something to take with them. And that's always my goal, is to give somebody something, right? And you might get something different than you get, and you get something different. Whatever that little thing is that you get from someone's writing, you take it. So I just felt like in this case I needed to be really patient and just like, it's gonna find the right home. You know, it's like like an ugly dog, you know. It's at the shelter and it just needs to find a home. I always think of things in terms like pieces in terms of finding the right home. So it did not, you know. When my editor said, "Yeah, I don't like these," that hurt a little bit, and I had to rethink. But you know, I questioned myself for a little bit. But you know, not everybody's right for every type of work too. You got to find the right fit. Yeah, and someone had a question on this side.
It wasn't really a question. I'm not a writer. I
Yeah.
just enjoy reading.
Awesome.
But I was just gonna say I did not faint, but that was deeply terrifying.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. I just wanted to let you know.
Yeah.
It's like a really powerful essay. As somebody with anxiety and funky heartbeats sometimes, and my dad has arrhythmia, and I was just
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
in it with you. So
Yeah.
that was super powerful.
Well, thank you for not leaving the room.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so, you're fine. Everything's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
But no, and so that's why I really don't read it. Like I do read things a lot, and this is really truly only the second time I've read it. And I may not read it again because I don't know. We'll see how the room feels. But yeah, well, thank you for saying that. Yeah. What else? Anyone? Yeah.
So I did think that parts of it were very funny.
Yeah.
And it's because you pile on, the lists of things that happen and it accumulates, right? And then you throw in that one little thing that just sort of sets off a bit of humor.
Yeah.
And is, thinking, is that part of the distancing that happens?
Part of the distancing.
Yeah.
No, I think that probably
Yeah.
yes, because I do that with a lot. I do that with almost everything. People, if you read any of the essays in this book, you'll see that I do that. There's like a hard hitting thing, a little piece of humor, or a little piece of humor, and then a real hard stinker thing that like a hard like concept to grasp, or something that I don't know if it's like offensive, but some people find some of the stuff I write about offensive. I wrote an essay in here about like getting a dog that killed all of our family's pets. And I got some little hate mail on that, like you're a terrible dog owner, you're a terrible pet owner, you're a terrible parent, but I had to when I wrote that essay, this dog literally he probably killed every animal, and you think, why do you keep getting animals? Why are you doing this? I have a daughter who just now like blinks an eye when an animal dies. She's like, my entire childhood animals were dying in my hand because this dog killed them all. So you can't write that. You can't write. It's true. It's horrible. Some guy canceled his subscription at the Missouri Review because of the essay too. Because, like, I understand it's a sensitive thing, but you have to. It's also absurdly funny in a weird way too. And also, children are funny, and also animals are funny, and so. To write that as like a heart-heavy, pathos-laden, over-dramatic thing, it would have been a really sad story about animals dying. But it's also about like children's reactions to stuff. So humor offsets that in a way that I'm very comfortable with. Yeah. Somebody else did it on this side. I don't know who it was. No? Anyone else? Yeah. You gotta speak up. You're way in the back.
So how does it feel to read aloud? Have you done it often with your personal works, and how is it different from just reading to look at your work as a whole and to edit?
Okay, can you say that again, just a little louder?
Yeah. So how does reading aloud feel?
Yeah.
When you do it with your personal work, as in compared to reading it just in your head for editing purposes?
Oh, that's a really good question. So, do you guys all? Are you a writer? Okay, that's okay. Yeah. I'm making everyone raise their. This is the most uncomfortable reading you've ever been to. I'm so sorry. But so if you write, you should read your stuff out loud to yourself too. Like go in your bathtub and just do it, because you catch a lot of stuff. You'll catch words that don't belong, or words that sound too much alike, or whatever. It's a kind of a poetic, I guess, mindset. But at first, when I didn't have confidence and I didn't know how what I wrote would be received, because I do write about really tough stuff, like the animal killing thing. And I wrote about a son. The title essay of this book is about a son of one of my children who has brain damage, and he has. We've since found that it's a form of OCD. Comes by it honestly, that caused him to be completely consumed with child pornography, and he couldn't stop, and we couldn't stop him, and he became a danger to others for a time. And that's hard, because you think, when you're home writing it, it's I want to write for a reason. I don't want to just write to be inflammatory or sensationalist or woe is me. I don't need sympathy or anything like that. I want to write because other people are going through this, other people have children like this, or other people who have these struggles, and it'll really destroy the family. So all kinds of things came to my mind when I was writing it, thinking, I almost didn't publish the essay. It won an award and I almost didn't publish it. And then I got the book contract, almost backed out of it and didn't publish it because I had a feeling that like I was going to, like we were going to get doxxed, we were going to get outed, I was going to get stoned. I really had like the visual image was people throwing fruit at me when I tried to read about it. And I actually don't read any part of this essay to any group because it's scary. But when you read to a group, you're sharing a part of yourself that they're going to take with them. And when you read alone at home, you're reading more clinically, I guess. That's how I do it anyway. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, like what does it mean exactly clinically?
Say that again. Okay, so I read as if I were an anatomist trying to look at all the parts of something and break it down to see is this working. An anatomist is probably not the right analogy. Like an engineer, mechanical engineer. Like I look at it, does this work? Does this work? Does this sound work? Does this sentence work? Is this sentence too long next to this short sentence? So when I read alone, I read to fix it. And when I read for others, I read to give a gift. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so
Okay.
does the clinical part ever come up during your read aloud? Or?
So there's a thing that happens for me when I'm up here that like sometimes it kind of feels like when I first read this essay, it was a very dark audience and I couldn't see anybody and there was a big, ugly spotlight. Like I looked like the crypt keeper. It was really terrible. It was a very bad light and it was right down on me. And the only thing I saw was the white page and then black everywhere around me. It was just pitch dark and it was this kind of surreal experience. So every once in a while there'll be a reading that like kind of makes me feel a little bit otherworldly. And that one in particular did. And it was also in an emotional essay and stuff. So it was pretty cool. But for the most part, no, I like to, you engage with, you try to see how the audience is feeling. You try to, you kind of out of the corner of your eye, somebody checking their watch, are people texting? You just want to, like, because the experience of everybody is what's important to me when I'm in here. So I don't feel like it's clinical, but there's a tiny bit of it where I just want to make sure everyone's having a good time. So, yeah, a little bit. Yeah. Does that make sense? Yeah. What else?
Well, you definitely gave us a good time.
Oh,
So,
well, that's good. So I do write funny. I mean, it's not all horror stuff. Yeah, Missouri Review called this piece medical horror, which at first I didn't understand because I was so inside it. And then when that lady fainted, I'm like, yeah, I guess it is. Yeah. And then I guess the key would be the arms strapped down to the table. That becomes medical horror, right? Yeah, so. Well, I'm glad you all enjoyed it. I'm so happy to be here and so happy to see all your faces. And I wish you all happy, good, successful writing careers.
thank you.
So
Beth.
thank you very much.